Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at the Roman Emperor Nero. Even if you don't know much about Roman history, you've probably heard that name.
Nero.
Yeah. He's famous for tyranny and extravagance.
And poisoned mushrooms.
And, well, maybe poisoned mushrooms. We're going to find out about that. So is Nero really as mad as they say?
Well, the stories are pretty dramatic, but as with most things in history, it's complicated.
Yeah, there's always more to the story, right?
Exactly.
All right, so let's jump right in. Let's go back to ancient Rome. How does this guy, originally named Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, which is quite a name,
Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast.
how does he become Emperor Nero?
Okay, so to understand Nero, you got to meet his mother,
Oh, this is going to be good.
Agrippina the Younger.
Agrippina the Younger.
Yes. And she was ambitious, to say the least. She really knew how to use power in a world dominated by men.
We're talking about the woman who married her own uncle, Emperor Claudius, right? I mean, what was she hoping to gain by marrying him?
Oh yeah, marrying Claudius put her right at the center of Roman power. But Agrippina wasn't just content with being the empress.
Of course not.
No, she saw a chance to secure an even greater position.
For her son.
For her son, exactly. She basically set the stage for Nero to be adopted by Claudius, which put him next in line for the throne. And that displaced Claudius's actual son, Britannicus.
So you're talking about a lot of political maneuvering. Was this kind of thing common practice in Roman succession? I mean, how often did stuff like this happen?
Adoption wasn't unheard of, but Agrippina, she was bold. She was really bold. Roman succession was messy. It could be bloodline. It could be political influence.
And sometimes just ruthlessness.
Oh, absolutely. And Agrippina, she knew how to play the game.
And then Claudius conveniently dies, rumored to have been poisoned by, you guessed it, mushroom.
Poison mushrooms, yeah.
And young Nero, only 16, he becomes emperor.
16 years old.
Talk about a stage mom taking things to the extreme.
Right. It's wild to think about how much influence Agrippina must have had.
Yeah.
And while we don't know for sure if she was behind Claudius's death, those rumors, they definitely add to her, image. But it makes you wonder if Agrippina had any idea what she was unleashing by putting Nero in power.
Yeah, because a power-hungry mother and a teenage emperor, that sounds like a recipe for, well, disaster.
Oh, yeah.
And their relationship does take a turn, doesn't it?
Big time. Their relationship falls apart quickly.
Hmm.
Agrippina wasn't about to just, step away from all the power she built up. She tried to control Nero's every move, even attending Senate meetings. Could you imagine?
Gosh, really?
Yeah. Like issuing orders right alongside him. Talk about a controlling mother. Imagine being a young emperor trying to assert your authority with your mother hovering over you constantly.
Oh, I can only imagine the tension. Sounds like this power struggle between them, it was bound to explode at some point.
It did. It did in a big way. There's this crazy story about Nero trying to get rid of his mother.
Okay.
With, get this, a collapsing boat.
Wait, a collapsing boat, like designed to collapse?
Yes. It was this luxurious boat designed to fall apart in the middle of a voyage.
Wow. So Agrippina would drown.
Exactly.
Was that like a normal way to get rid of rivals in ancient Rome? That sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Assassinations, they were definitely part of the game in Roman politics, yeah. But this one was bold. It really shows you how far Nero was willing to go to break free from his mother. And get this, Agrippina survived.
No way.
Yeah, she managed to swim to shore. Can you imagine realizing your own son just tried to kill you?
That level of betrayal, it's unbelievable. But escaping a collapsing boat, that wasn't enough to save her from Nero, was it?
No, it wasn't. Nero was frustrated. He was scared of his mother's influence. He eventually sent soldiers to kill her. The story goes that Agrippina's last words were, "Strike here, where the womb carried Nero."
Oh my gosh. That's chilling.
Intense family drama, right?
Yes.
It's hard to wrap your head around a mother and son locked in that kind of power struggle.
Yeah. But Nero's troubles didn't end with his mother, right? There was the Great Fire of Rome. I mean, that was a huge turning point in his reign.
You're right, the fire really tested him. And how he handled it, well, that's been debated for centuries.
Yeah. We're going to get into all that after the break.
So we were talking about the Great Fire of Rome.
Yeah, I mean, picture a city in ruins. I mean, smoke everywhere. And everyone trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, it was devastating. The fire raged for 6 days straight. It destroyed so much. Homes, temples, public buildings. Thousands of people lost everything. They were homeless.
I mean, you can just imagine the fear, all the uncertainty in the city.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where the rumors start to swirl
Right.
about how the fire started.
So what did Nero do? I mean, how did he handle this crisis?
Well, Nero, he did take some steps to help the people. He opened up his gardens, offered shelter,
Hmm.
and had food brought in from nearby areas. Oh, and he also implemented new building codes, using fire-resistant materials and wider streets to prevent another disaster.
Okay, so practical measures. Did that help calm things down? I mean, did it stop the rumors about him being involved in the fire?
Not really. Those rumors, they persisted.
Why?
Well, because Nero started building his extravagant domiceria, the Golden House,
Oh, yeah.
on land that had been cleared by the fire.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see how people might see that as kind of insensitive.
Right. It was this sprawling palace. He had artificial lakes built, gilded statues. To a lot of people who just lost everything, it seemed like a slap in the face.
Yeah, even if Nero didn't start the fire himself, the timing with the Domisoria, I mean, it couldn't have been worse. It really fueled that image of him as, well, as a heartless ruler.
Exactly. And there are all these stories about Nero playing music, like his lyre.
While Rome burned?
Yeah, while Rome burned.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Historians still debate how accurate those accounts are, but the image stuck. I mean, it's become a symbol of Nero's indifference to his people's suffering.
And then, I mean, to make things even worse, he blames the Christians for the fire. A relatively new religious group at the time, they were not well understood. Why the Christians?
Nero needed someone to blame.
A scapegoat.
A scapegoat, exactly. The Christians, they had different beliefs, different practices. They were an easy target.
Mm.
Blaming them, it deflected attention from Nero and, kind of satisfied the public's desire for someone to be held accountable.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a pretty common tactic throughout history, isn't it? Finding someone to blame when things go wrong.
It is.
So how did all this impact the early Christian community in Rome?
Not well. It was a period of really intense persecution. Christians faced imprisonment, torture, even death. It's a reminder of how quickly fear and prejudice can be exploited by those in power.
So Nero basically fumbles the crisis
Yeah.
and then targets a vulnerable group. Pretty dark.
Yeah, it is.
But let's shift gears a bit. Talk about another side of Nero that often gets highlighted. His artistic side. I mean, the guy was obsessed with art and performance. How did that play out during his time as emperor?
Yeah, you're right. Nero wasn't just a politician. He was a wannabe artist.
Oh, really?
He wrote poetry, composed music. He even performed on stage.
Really?
He saw himself as this multi-talented guy.
Renaissance man.
Exactly. But he was pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for an emperor.
Okay, hold on. He performed in public.
Yep.
Wasn't that considered beneath an emperor?
Totally. I mean, the Roman elite, they believed the emperor should be all about gravitas authority. Public performance was frivolous, undignified. But Nero loved breaking the rules. He organized these huge games and festivals, participated in chariot races. He sang, he acted.
Wow, that's a far cry from the stereotypical stern Roman emperor. I can't imagine everyone was happy with all this.
Oh, no. The senators, the aristocracy, you can just imagine them whispering, raising eyebrows. They thought he was arrogant, that he was disrespecting Roman tradition. But Nero, he didn't care. He was going to do what he wanted.
He was a rebel.
He was. But all these artistic pursuits, it couldn't have been cheaper, especially after rebuilding Rome after the fire.
Yeah, and he was already draining the treasury with the Domiceria.
You got it. His lifestyle put a huge burden on Rome's finances. He raised taxes. I mean, just imagine how that went over with the common people.
Oh, well, I imagine.
Not well at all. It was a dangerous mix. An emperor completely out of touch with his people, and a population that's getting more and more resentful. That's not exactly a recipe for stability.
No, definitely not. And it seems like it just keeps getting worse from here.
Right. As Nero loses his grip on power, things start to get, well, pretty dark.
Yeah, his paranoia grows and leads to some brutal actions, even against those closest to him. Let's dive into that next. All right, so we're back, and we're talking about Emperor Nero, and things are, well, they're about to get a lot worse.
Yeah, his paranoia really starts to take over.
It affects everyone around him.
Oh, yeah. As Nero gets more and more isolated, more afraid of plots against him, his actions, they become more erratic, more violent. He starts seeing enemies everywhere.
Even among, his closest allies.
Exactly. Being in Nero's inner circle during this time, it was a dangerous game. No one was safe, not even his wives.
Let's talk about his wives. His first wife, Octavia.
Octavia, she becomes a victim of his paranoia. She's accused of adultery, treason,
Oh, trumped up charges.
totally made up, and she's executed. It's chilling to think about. Absolute power, unchecked power and fear.
Yeah.
It can be used to eliminate anyone.
It's scary. And the fear that must have been in Nero's court. I mean, if your own wife isn't safe, who is? And it doesn't stop with Octavia, does it?
No, it doesn't. His second wife, Poppaea Sabina, she also meets a tragic end.
What happened to her?
Well, Poppaea, she was known for her beauty and her influence over Nero. But, according to some accounts, she died after Nero, in a fit of rage, kicked her.
Oh my gosh.
It's a grim picture of a man, consumed by power, completely detached from reality.
And it's not just his wives, even his advisors, his mentors, they weren't safe from Nero's anger.
You're right, Seneca.
Seneca the philosopher.
Yes, Seneca. He had been Nero's tutor, his advisor. But Nero starts to suspect him, thinks he's involved in plots against him.
So what happens?
Nero orders Seneca to commit suicide.
It's like he's tearing down his own support system, pushing away anyone who could challenge him.
You see that a lot with autocratic rulers. They get more suspicious, more likely to lash out.
And that brings us to, well, the Pisonian conspiracy,
Yeah.
a major plot against Nero in 65 AD. What happened there?
So this group of senators, nobles, they're fed up with Nero, his excesses, his tyrannical rule. They decide to overthrow him.
A coup.
Yeah, a coup.
Yeah.
But it's uncovered, and it fails.
But it must have had a huge impact on Nero. I mean, confirmed all his fears.
Absolutely makes him even more paranoid. And it leads to, well, a bloodbath.
Executions, purges.
Anyone even remotely connected to the conspiracy, anyone suspected of disloyalty, they're eliminated. The whole atmosphere in Rome, it's just fear, mistrust. Anyone could be next.
It's all falling apart, isn't it?
It is. Nero's lost the Senate. The people are suffering. And he's getting rid of anyone he sees as a threat. It's only a matter of time before it all comes crashing down.
So how does it end? How does the mighty Nero fall?
Well, in 68 AD, things really start to unravel. There's this governor in Gaul, Vindex. Yeah, he rebels against Nero, publicly condemns his rule, calls for his removal.
And that was it.
That was the beginning of the end. The rebellion failed, but it showed everyone that Nero was vulnerable.
And it inspired others.
Exactly. Soon after, another rebellion breaks out, this time in Spain, led by Galba, another governor.
And this time it's different.
Yeah, both Vindex and Galba, they get the support of the Roman legions.
Oh, the legions. That's huge.
It is. The legions were the backbone of the Roman military. They were fiercely loyal. And when they turned against Nero, well, that was it. Game over.
So what did Nero do? Did he fight back?
No. He panicked. He tried to flee Rome. But his guards, they abandoned him. He's left with just a few loyal servants.
Can you imagine this powerful emperor reduced to a fugitive, running for his life?
It must have been terrifying for him. He knew if he was captured, he'd be executed, probably publicly.
Okay.
So he decided to take his own life.
Suicide.
Yeah, he stabbed himself in the neck. There's a story that his last words were, "What an artist dies in me."
Wow, what a line. It really sums him up, doesn't it?
It does. The drama, the self-absorption, even if those weren't his actual last words, they capture something about him.
So Nero dies, but the story doesn't end there. He's remembered as this tyrant, a symbol of excess. But is that fair? I mean, was he really that bad?
That's the question, isn't it? Was he a monster or was he just a product of his time? Someone with flaws? Sure, but also talents. Someone corrupted by power. I don't know. It's a debate that continues today.
And that's what makes history so interesting. You get to explore these complex figures, these stories that echo throughout time.
You're right. History isn't just about memorizing dates. It's about understanding the human story, the choices, the triumphs, the tragedies. And Nero's story, as messed up as it is, it teaches us something.
About the dangers of unchecked power.
Yeah. And the importance of accountability, that our actions have consequences.
So if there's one thing to take away from our deep dive into Nero, it's that history is rarely simple.
Yeah. It's full of gray areas, complicated characters, and stories that still resonate today.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this look into the reign of Emperor Nero. And, keep learning, keep questioning.
Keep digging deeper into the stories that shape our world.
We'll see you next time.